Welcome, storyteller to storyteller. I'm Shannon Cason. I'm glad to be here with you. Storyteller to storyteller is creative conversations with me. I'm a storyteller. I tell stories on pages, stages, and on my podcast. I got a podcast called Shannon Cason's Homemade. I've been doing that podcast for a long time, and it's where I share a lot of my stories. And I know a lot of storytellers from stages from around the country, just different shows and different events that I've done. And I started this to kind of have a conversation because I was just talking to my guest today before this, and I was like, we spend so much time alone, like writing and all those things. It's fun to have somebody to talk to and talk about the writing process, talk about creativity, talk about shows that we've done and all those things. And for today, first I'll say this: like and subscribe, like and subscribe. I'm gonna be having these conversations, and I tell stories on this page too. But like and subscribe, please. And today's guest is Claire Zulkey. Claire Zulkey, I know her now. I know she's a writer. She's a storyteller too. She's an author. She's authored books. She has a show. That's where I know her from. The show that she does in Chicago called Funny Ha Ha. And I've been honored to be a part of her show a few times. Every time I do her show, it's a good time. It's like you've been curated by somebody who picks great people who do her show, and it's at this place called the Hideout, which is like a classic place in Chicago. I've seen a lot of comedy shows there and a lot of things like that. But I'm gonna quit talking. I'm gonna bring Claire up. We can talk about her show. We can talk about her creativity and her writing and all that. So I'm gonna bring her up right now and quit talking so much. Let me see. Blah blah blah. Bam. Claire,
Hi, Shannon. Thanks for having me.
thanks for being here. I appreciate it. I appreciate it. What's your typical Sunday like? I appreciate you being with me on Sunday. I see the green too.
Oh, yeah. Well, I'm not Irish at all, but I know Shannon. So, I know I can tell you're an Irishman. So I wanted to represent for you. It was actually an unusually quiet weekday for my family. I had two boys. Shout out. I think they might be watching me online. They told me to give them a shout out. And so they do a lot of sports and activities. So a lot of that. So we had a quiet day today, like just reading, watching TV, walking the dog, like going for a swim at the Y, pretty quiet. But we had some school activities yesterday. There's birthday parties, things like that. So I've been trying to do a much better job of resting on the weekends. I used to try to do like fit in like work, like administrative work on the weekends. And now I'm more in a, like, let me really enjoy the weekend and not do this like fake work. Just, because even if it's not really creative work, it's still stuff to do. So I'm trying to be to-do list free on the weekends. How about you?
It's important to do that. Like I used to always think like weekends, work, 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 work. And probably in the past 4 years, I looked at weekends as I can do some work if I want to, but I'm not gonna feel bad if I
Yeah.
just roam the streets and walk around, or I watch a television series. I'm not gonna feel bad about this anymore. That's a good thing to realize. Let me
Well,
enjoy my week, my work, my
either
weekend.
yeah,
Yeah.
I've been either like hustling as a freelancer plus a writer or as a full-time freelancer for over 20 years now. Oh my gosh, like 24 years. And like there's no such thing as getting ahead. It's like a myth. You'll never be like everything's done and now I can rest. So you might as well like just say it's done for yourself and then pick it back up. But what have you been doing this weekend?
This weekend's been chill. Basically just chill. I've been on this walking and health kick. So I went to the gym, and I just been walking as much as possible. Just been in this mood of just wanting to walk and roam the streets. I've been walking Andersonville on the lake and everywhere else. I'm in Chicago now too. We was just talking about that. Now, let me say this. This is how I know you. When I think of you, you know, I always knew of you in some way. And then you had your show, Funny Ha Ha, and I know about the show because you've invited me to do it a few times, in which I was honored to be invited because you've always had great guests, and it's like cool when you see certain people who know how to curate shows and then they invite you to do it. Like like it's so many shows in Chicago, but it'd be like certain shows, you know, that they don't invite everybody, and you're like, oh, she wants me to come. But I knew you
Yeah.
a writer. I know you've written for pretty much every publication, like the big publications like New York Times and Wall Street Journal and the Atlantic and those things. But I also know that you've authored some books as well. But those are the things I know. I know writer, author, and a cool show in Chicago at the Hideout. But tell me a little bit more, maybe some things I don't know. Go a little deeper for me.
All right. Well, I think right now the thing, like my sort of my passion project, I have a Substack newsletter called Evil Witches, and it's we call it for people who happen to be mothers, and I say it's also for people who like mothers or support mothers, and it's like a place to talk about family life and kids and everything that goes around it, but without being able to complain about it basically and ask hard questions, but without having to say like, I love my kids, but or like or to kind of go beyond some basic questions that mothers often ask, like, can you be a good mom and have a job? Yeah. Are we really asking that question? Like, let's put that to bed. Like, let's talk about other things, and it can be everything from politics to cooking to travel to beauty, sex, like the hard parts of having kids, the funny parts of having kids. So I've been doing that since right before COVID started. So that goes out twice a week. And so
Wow.
I'd say that that's probably like where I do my main storytelling currently. So that's an interesting medium, but it has like 15,000 subscribers right now, and then about 1,000 paid subscribers. So thanks, yeah. But it's not unlike storytelling, like a show or any kind of storytelling series where you're like, I hope this doesn't flop. I hope people like what I'm putting out there. I hope it's well received. And sometimes you're like, I don't know what's worse, if I get a boo or if I get nothing. So it kind of has the same anxiety that comes along with it. And yeah, I'm sorry, go ahead. I want to.
No. I want you to keep on going. But I just know on the Substack thing, like I just recently found out about this Substack thing. I saw Tim Barnes had one, and when I had gone on his, I think it's Letters with African America or something like that. And I had gone on his, and then I saw that the Substack thing is a whole world. Like it's a
Yeah.
whole, you can follow so many writers, and it's its own community in a sense. So it's pretty cool. You got 15,000 readers out there, and then paid readers as well. So that's amazing. Yeah, because I know
Yeah.
you blog. I knew you through the blog as well. So
Yeah.
Zulkey, I used to know the blog from
Yeah.
WBZ used to push it as well.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. So I feel like this is sort of the next version of that kind of. So it's sort of a mix of like humor, but also interviewing, like personal essays, things like that. So it is cool where it is a lot like blogging where you're like, it's all up to me. I can do whatever I want, but at the same time, it's really terrifying, as probably as as a freelancer and just as someone doing their own thing. It's kind of scary when you're in charge of everything. You're like, I wouldn't mind someone telling me this is due when, and you're not going to get paid until you do that, and like these are the parameters. Like sometimes you're like, I kind of wish I had like some kind of boss, but it's been going well. It's got a good community to it, which I really like. It's really cool to hear what other people are up to and to like laugh and hear, like, get advice from them. So and then something else I've been doing is I have been doing ghost writing. So I'm writing a book right now about a guy who it's some memoirs by a guy who got hit by a car in 2018, like going 37 miles an hour, and he had this like profound brain damage and like craniectomy and things like that. And now he's a marathon runner. So I'm telling his story, and it's kind of funny, but it's kind of serious that like writing a ghostwriting for someone who has brain damage like has its own unique challenges because he doesn't remember everything, and he like doesn't remember all the details. So sometimes I'm making up details and making up dialogue, and I'm like, does this look good? Because he doesn't remember, and but it's been cool to hear his story, and that's been kind of an interesting project I've been working on because book writing is really hard. That's a whole other thing. So I like kind of telling someone else's story is pretty nice right now. And then I do a lot of freelance writing too. Go ahead.
No, I talked to friends who and you hadn't, or I hadn't known that, like I hadn't read that in your bio or anything about ghostwriting, but in my mind, I'm like, Claire probably ghostwrites. You know, and I said that in the promo for this. I said she probably ghostwritten a bunch of books or in some ways, but I knew other friends who had ghostwritten books, and the interviews that they would have and how long of a process that can be as well, with the interviews, the um having to write it and then getting things, making sure it's researched right and that the information is right. So you going through all that process right now. Does it have a, like you talked about having dates, does it have like a time frame on when things are done and those, when you're working on those kind of projects?
Well, this one has been really weird because I sort of took over from a guy who the clients didn't like what he was doing, so I kind of inherited the first part that he had written. And but meanwhile, the agency, like that's like the sort of the intermediary, was like, we can't afford to have you rewrite this, so can you like fix this but without doing too much work, which is not like a thing that happens. So
Yeah.
I'm on my last chapter right now, and it's as a story, again, as a storytelling situation, it's kind of funny because they've crammed in a ton of stuff in the last chapter, and you're like, again, as a storyteller, like this should be paced out, like this should probably be over a long span of time. As a person trying to get paid and trying to move on to the next thing, I'm also like, I'm going to do what you say and I'm going to do it the best way I can. But that's sort of a funny aspect about ghostwriting. And something else that's kind of funny is like I have written books under my own name, and I mean, we can talk about this later or not, but I'm proud of my books. But the books I've written under my own name were not runaway bestsellers or bestsellers. You know, they were just, I'm glad I did them. I love them and I'm proud of them. But the last, one of the first books I ghost wrote is by a guy who's like very popular on YouTube and, you know, TikTok. And he's a principal. And that book was a bestseller, but nobody will ever know because the only place my name appears is in the dedication, because I could write the dedication to myself, but it's my name isn't on it, and I'm sure it earned out and earned him a ton of royalties, but not me. But like that's, you know, the highs are high. It can be such a humbling process, and like, you know, that's why it's good to have friends that you can talk to about this, that you can laugh about it with, because like some people might be like, oh, it's really sexy to ghostwrite, or you must make a lot of money, and you're like, I wish, be nice, maybe for some people, but not for me. So,
Yeah,
um,
I'm sure you learned some things even probably through that process though. It's like everything I go through, it's a building block, and I hope I get more opportunities, but I learn from those first opportunities with things, and hope to get information. That's kind of what I want to talk to people here for, to get some information from friends who may have gone through similar situations, and they can give you a little bit of, hey, it don't matter if you ghost writ. Get some royalties on it, you know, or make sure
yeah,
you can position the deal to do this, because if it's a takeoff, you,
yeah,
even though your name might not be known or anything else, you want to be seen. But in my head, just that feeling, like I've read your writing and I know some of your stuff. I'm like, she's probably done other books as well. So I was right about that.
yeah, yeah, here and there. That's funny because my kids were just asking me if I would write another book, and I said, I don't know, I don't think so anytime soon. And they're like, you should. And I was like, okay, like I'll set aside 8 years and like toil, you know, and quiet and hope that I can sell it. And again, it's not just like the writing and the revising, it's the selling and then promoting it and hustling it. Cause like when you publish a book and it doesn't go anywhere, you have to like look deep inside yourself and be like, okay, why did I do this? What is this for? Like there is another writer I was just talking to, and she was on the Today Show. Do I have her book right here? I want to give her a shout out. L'Oreal Thompson Payton. You should have her on your show sometime, but she's a local writer. But she was on the Today Show and promoting her book. And then afterwards, she kind of was like talking about this feeling of what now? And I'm kind of deflated. And I was like, that's the marathon of it all. And like almost the religious, like, what is that? What is my meaning? What am I doing this for? Because like, you're never going to always be like that. It's the ups and downs. And, you know, you got to make your peace with that.
No, that's a gem right there you dropping. I love hearing that. What experiences led you towards this? Like toward, because you talked about 24 years in it. What experiences, and I'm sure it's probably more than that. What experiences led you towards becoming a writer and doing it professionally?
Yeah, it's kind of like a weird confluence of flops almost. Like when I graduated from college in 2001, And that was like right at the time where, you know, the economy was not great. There were not a lot of jobs. I was doing some writing in college, some humor writing, some playwriting, and I got exactly one job offer out of college, I went to Georgetown University, and after that degree, just one single job offer, which was like, well, anyway, whatever. So I was at an ad agency in Chicago, not a big one, not a fancy one. Our biggest client was a riverboat casino. So I was like writing, you know, like hottest slots on the lake. I'm not kidding. Like we would talk about penny slots,
Was it in
hottest slots.
Hammond?
It was in Hammond. I don't know if I, you know what, I can name it. It was Majestic Star Casino. So like not even Horseshoe. And but in the meantime,
It was
like
a smaller one. It wasn't even Horseshoes.
no, it was so sad. It would be like for the club members, it'd be like you could come and get a drink, and it'd be like, how can we phrase this so it doesn't sound as cheap as it is? Like, how can we make it sound like you get more than one free drink? Like that was like the kind of meetings we were having. So one thing that was kind of cool about that time was that like a lot of websites about writing were springing up. Like McSweeney's is one of the ones that's still around, but a lot of places you could write online. You would write for free, but you could get your name out there and then have a clip to show people, and you're like, here's something funny or interesting I wrote. And I met a lot of cool people that way, including my husband, actually. And so I kind of had these two lives going on at the same time, like showing up for my day job and then just like kind of playing around with writing. I had my blog going. Blogs were like really brand new at the time when that started. So I was like,
oh, you had your blog going at that time too?
Yeah, like in 2002, I would say.
Wow, okay.
Yeah. So, and I had done some like internship at New City, if you remember, if you know that magazine in
I know New
Chicago.
City, yeah.
Yeah, some Tribune stuff. And so very slowly I started to build my freelance writing career. Again, all while having a day job. And I would like finally get that first clip. And so much of writing is leverage, is just like saying like, I've done this, so you should let me do that. And so it was a lot of building up from that. So that's when I got my first Tribune clip, some kind of magazines here and there, smaller publications. And eventually, people were talking about these blogs. Like they're like, people are writing out there. What is this crazy trend? Sort of like the way live storytelling has been and the way Substacks are now, where it's like, what is this like untapped vein? And so I started getting some kind of cool writing assignments from people who were like, I've heard of your blog. Like, I think the highest height I ever got was a magazine. It's defunct now, I think, called Modern Bride. And I got hired to go to a private Caribbean island by myself and like write up what it's like to go on a honeymoon on this island. And I got paid to do this. And that was like, I've never had an assignment like that in my life. I also like totally flopped and they didn't like what I did and rewrote it, but it doesn't matter because what's kind of funny is that my husband and I went back to that island for our honeymoon and we couldn't afford the version I get sent on. So like our honeymoon was not as nice as the job version that I had done. And like I was kind of salty about it.
So it worked. They brought you back there. I mean, you went back because it worked. It was such a good experience, I suppose, you know, that you did your honeymoon there, but at the same time, the way they see, but that's what the thing, the writing, when those kind of assignments come, that makes people really interested in these writing careers. You're like, oh no, them guys, you know, yeah. No, that's pretty cool. That's pretty cool.
But again, I did not get. I mean, I always wanted to have a very sexy writing career. Like I thought, like living in New York and like working in publishing, like working for Condé Nast or something like that. Like that would be, you know, maybe Rolling Stone or something like that. That would be the coolest job to ever have. Once I moved back to Chicago after college, I never left. I worked for another day job. I got fired from my ad agency job, worked for Northwestern. And then finally, all the time, you know, like that, when I was at Northwestern is when I started working for BEZ and blogging for them. And then finally, around 2012, I got a job at University of Chicago, writing, and they're like alumni magazine, like writing for alumni magazines. And so that was my first day job. I felt like getting to write for pay, and they knew I was a freelancer. So, because all that time before that, I was kind of on the down low because I was like, I didn't know if my bosses would be fine with me, you know, moonlighting. So they knew they brought me in as my whole person, and I didn't have to hide it. And like, it was really, that was where I learned to like really work with really smart people and like be in meetings and have good edits. And like, I don't know, that was just like the first like writing job I had. And then I had my second kid in 2015, and I decided to go full-time freelance ever since then. So in some ways I'm doing exactly what I always wanted,
Yeah.
but I'm also raising these kids, which is like its own job, and like if they're watching, I love you guys, you're the best, just every day is a privilege. But like, it can be lonely. It can be you're cramming in sick days. My kid was home sick on Monday, so I was home all day with him. My other kid has 3 volleyball games this week, so it'll be like a lot of driving around with that, like a lot of admin kind of stuff. So I feel like in some ways I'm still doing that thing where it's like I'm working my day job and trying to be creative at the same time, and seeing what can come of it. But
No,
um
I can see that. I can see that because I've watched the videos and I've seen your kids in the videos. Your husband um
mhm.
does
Steve Delahoy, yeah.
he does the video production and filmmaker and I just watched one. I was sitting here with a friend of mine watching one, and I saw your kids yelling. I'm like, them boys look like they could get into some.
Yes,
They look like they
yes.
could be a handful. They probably
Yeah,
fun. You probably have a great time.
they are.
Family.
You know what? They are pretty good. I mean, no, if they're watching, that's funny to think about them watching. But like, I used to have a boyfriend who had 3 brothers, and the stories he would tell me like really freaked me out. Like, I thought we would be in the emergency room a lot more than we were. Like the pranks his brothers used to play on each other. So like, my boys like keep me on my toes, but they are much nicer than I thought they would be. Like living with each other, and so
No, that's
it's
a
funny.
beautiful thing.
Remind me, do you have brothers or sisters?
I got 2 younger brothers, so they're so much younger that they're like 15 years younger, and then one is like he could be my son. The other one could be my
Okay.
so
Well,
and then I got an older sister. So my older sister is like my second mom in a sense, growing up. It took me a while to even want to curse in front of my older sister. And after a while, I was like, fuck it, Sonya, She was like, I was like, I'm
yeah.
grown. I can say that if I want to, but yeah, I understand. But when I looked at those 2 boys in the picture, I was like, they look like they have fun together. They look like they're good kids.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and they have fun with their dad. I mean, they it was very validating. My younger one had me read him one of my books. I wrote a book for middle schoolers, and I read him one of the books at bedtime over a week, and that was really validating. Sometimes I think they don't really know what I do because their dad like makes like videos, and sometimes he works with celebrities and he'll put them in the videos, and like writing is not quite as sexy like that. Like, and like, I mean, this is pathetic, but once I proofread one of my son's pieces for school, and he said, "Thanks, mom. I would have gotten a much worse grade if you hadn't looked at that." And I was like, "Thank you for like recognizing what I do and giving me a little bit of recognition." But yeah, they are both good writers. They like to draw a lot. They're into sports. Like they are, so that's fun. They are fun to live with. They are good boys. But like I said, it's the writing, like all your work comes second to the kids, even if you don't want it to, like
No,
it's
no, and I know, and it's good when they do get some validation. Like I know my daughter sometimes she'll be in the car, and I'll come on the radio or something like that, and I can see a little bit of her pride. I'll be like, "Oh, my daughter," or she'll call me and say, "Dad, you were on the radio." I was like, "Oh, really? Okay, that's cool."
that's cute. How old is she?
She's 14 now,
Oh,
so
okay.
yeah. Try to make a 14-year-old girl think you doing something cool is hard.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
so
no.
I take that when she give it to me. Like, okay, so you work on all different kind of projects, and you've talked about the blogging, the Substack now, and then the other things. What do you at certain points in a freelance career, you take what's given, right? Somebody hires you and you do it. But at some point, do you like decide on your projects, and what projects do you like working on? Like, what writing do you enjoy doing? Because I know even in my career, it's some things that I'll do. I need to be paid. I need money. So I'm like, okay, well, let's figure out what workforce development is. And I'm like, okay, let me
Oh my God,
let
yeah.
me let me let me learn this so I can make some money doing it and hopefully do it in a way that I'm enjoying creating this. But then what are some projects that you really enjoy doing, and then how do you transition from that? I probably lost myself in this question, you know what I'm
No,
saying? But you
I
get
was
what
like
I'm saying.
taking, yeah, no, I actually realized last year, I was like, there's like a quadrant of work that like you can kind of map any kind of work on, and it's I'd say like the 4 areas are like, is it interesting? How much money does it pay? Is it easy to do? And is it for the greater good? Because I like, unfortunately, some of my best paying clients are not like necessarily like it's business world. It's people who collect sports cars and timepieces and who are like helping governments make more money. And you're like one time I did some client work and I said yes to this project and I didn't realize until I started working on it that it was a group that was like trying to convince people to use more natural gas instead of green energy. And like, it was like how we're going to convince people, especially people who are, yeah, people who don't make a lot of money, convince them that green energy is not good for them. And I was like, this is not great, like, so I'm kind of like trying to make a map of that lately. I'd say last year, my favorite piece that I worked on, there's a little shop in Evanston that's been around my whole life. And I always had questions about it and wondered about it. And while I was in line somewhere, I just sent an email to the editor of the local paper, the Evanston Roundtable. And I said, can I write about the Mexican shop? And I just was like, here I am, here's who I am. Like, I didn't even really write a long pitch about it. And they said, yeah. And I got paid $50 for that piece. And I think I already paid, I used up all my fee, like getting transcription done, but I had so much fun asking the questions I wanted to ask and like writing from a place of love and curiosity that was fun. And then, on the flip side, like I said, I write for this consulting agency where I'm like, I don't know what you guys do. And I think that's like part of like why they make money is like they use these terms that are like, you're like, what the hell, so as a friend of mine once called that waitressing, like the work that you do for money that is not necessarily for like a lot of fun per se. Like, and Evil Witches, on the other hand, it's like my newsletter. It is so fun, but again, I think sometimes I wish there was like somebody telling me what to do because like the amorphousness of it is very very confusing. Or just like just not knowing what's going to land and what is real to you. There's a magazine I've been working for lately that is about like local stuff for the greater good, and I've gotten to write about things like this Ignatian spirituality retreat project that takes people who've been homeless or had addiction issues and takes them on these spiritual retreats that hopefully will like help them on their next stage of life, and like writing about local plays and things like that. So that's great because I get paid to write about art or about people doing something good, and that's pretty rare, unfortunately.
Is your voice in all your work? Like if you were writing something for something that it may not necessarily be something that you thought of, but they need writing done for this. Is your voice still in that? Do you include your style?
When I can, I mean, sometimes, Shannon, it's so corporate. Like if I'm writing like a bio about some dude who's a partner at this consulting firm for 25 years, like there's not a lot of room for like, hey, here's a funny joke or like a funny little but I got to do a piece for Northwestern Law School recently about a woman whose now husband proposed to her in the law school, like in class. And that was just fun. I think it's easy to have your voice when you are interested and you would tell someone else
Yeah.
about the story. You notice me not telling you much about this consulting stuff because there's nothing really interesting happening. So I can't really turn that into a story. But I think when I'm interested, my voice comes through and I can find like an easy way into it. And it's not that hard at all. So it's harder when it's drier and it's easier when it's more fun. But I will say, I think one of the some lessons I learned as I've gotten older and more confident. And one thing was to know when to walk away from something, even if you would get paid when it's not the right project.
Mm.
I was offered a ghostwriting job last year for a very, very rich entrepreneur in Chicago who co-founded a local business that took off. And he wanted me to write a newsletter for him, a ghostwriting newsletter. And I was really starstruck by how popular, how famous he is. He was like, jetting off on his private jet to go meet with Chelsea Clinton for something. And like, he's founded these things. And after trying to work with him for a couple of months, I realized like, we don't work together at all in any way that makes sense to me, and had me second guessing myself because he's so influential and rich, I was like, well, I must be doing this wrong. I must not understand the project. And then something clicked and I was like, no, it's not me, it's him. It's just the way they're not working like we're not working. And I just decided to say, I don't think this is right for me and move on. And it felt so good to be done with that and not worry about it anymore and have to like tell his story. Cause I was like, I don't get him. I don't get this. And I'm so glad I did. And I'm glad I'm more confident and secure and frankly have the money, you know, like let's be real and
Yeah,
transparent. You can't
yeah.
always
No,
afford
that's
to
it. That's a
turn.
big part of it. Yeah.
Yeah.
To be able to make decisions and stick to them. And also, even you saying that, I can feel the weight lift when it would probably happen. And you was just like, yeah, I don't want to do this project. And that is something else when you decide your projects. I think that's a privilege. You know, that's a great privilege when you're able to decide what projects you want to take and which ones you don't. What's your typical? Because it sounds like so much, even with your Substack and then the freelance work and then other projects that you might be working on. Like, what's your writing process like? You know, what is your how do you have rituals and habits? Is it a app, a chat GPT app that writes?
Oh God.
Have you made up a Zulkey GPT that does it?
All right, I'll tell you a little secret. I do use Chat GPT to write headlines sometimes because headlines are so hard to come up with sometimes. I don't know what it is. It's like if you made a beautiful dinner for a cooking competition show, and then they're like, now make like a perfect little dessert, and you're like, I got nothing. So that's when I turn to Chat GPT, you know,
You're
and
like,
they're
I
like,
spend too much time doing everything else.
yeah, yeah. So sometimes so I actually have like a to-do list every day. This is a really short one. And every day I wake up and we get the kids. I try to wake up actually and drink some coffee and read and then get the kids going, get them out the door. An ideal world, I get a workout in first. And then I feel like every day I like have this ideal of like, I'm going to get all the hard things done first. Everything that I'm like worried about, I'm going to get done first. And then the rest of the day will be easy. And that never ever happens. And I don't know like when I'm gonna just like face the facts and like work the way that I'm gonna work. But I try to do the client stuff first. If I have a deadline, like tomorrow I have a profile for this consulting agency. This one will be actually pretty easy because this lady works in sustainability and she told me her hobbies are like bonsai gardening and reading, and she rescued a dog. So I'm like, okay, I have some interesting stuff to work on for her. I'm going to be ghostwriting that book, so I got to put in sometimes I work on a project basis. Other times when I know I'm not going to finish it, I'll be like, okay, I'm going to set a clock for 25 minutes. I'm just going to work on this for 25 minutes and then get out of there, you know. For Evil Witches, it's really hard, my newsletter, because I have a lot of things going at the same time, like a lot of different issues. So like I'm working on one right now that's promoting other readers' books. I'm going to send an issue out that's like, here are the authors in our group, here are the books they're selling, buy them. I'm working on a piece about how to talk to your kids about depression, how to talk to your kids about alcoholism. Some of these are really dark and hard to like want to work on. One lady asked me to do a piece about if you have cancer or really heavy disease, how you talk to your kids about that. So I'm going to reach out to people I know and
Okay,
ask them to
so
talk to me.
Claire,
Yeah.
you bring up, you said you do a timer.
Mm-hmm.
You're able to because you're throwing out a lot.
Yeah.
You're able to switch. How is that just a muscle you've built up? Because how
I
can you
need it.
switch from writing about alcoholism and then going to your blog, I mean your Substack, and then going to the ghostwritten book, and then going to the lady who has the dog. I mean,
Cancer. Yeah, I know. Yeah, right.
I would be going crazy, but you're able to.
Like I need that. I actually really need it. I need them to bump up against each other. I think I need to be able to switch from something kind of dry into something more personal, into something that's finite. Like I'm doing a profile for Northwestern about this young man who he got his master's in public policy. So I think there's something about being able to switch that helps me, because I always say if I have like 20 things to do in a day, I'll probably get like 17 done. But if I only have one thing to do that day, I won't get it done. And I need the friction. I've been
You
watching.
like that? Okay.
Yeah, I think yeah, I need to be, and a lot of times those things inform each other too. Like even if I don't realize it at the time, a lot of things I pull from one piece, I'll end up applying to something else down the line. Like I'm trying to remember. Oh, I did a piece about gun violence, which was again like that was like incredibly huge and hard, and like how do you make sense of something that is such a big issue, but then I ended up doing another piece about religious groups in Chicago working together to combat gun violence, and not I wasn't necessarily like taking a lot of institutional knowledge, but just being like, okay, I've been here before, I kind of know what questions to ask, I know what what some of the issues are. So that I think that's why I like the diversity of projects. I think that was a myth when I was starting out, like as a young journalist. People would always say you can't just do whatever. You have to pick one thing and stick with it, or else no one will take you seriously. And that's BS. Like you absolutely can do a lot of different things at once. And, I mean, as long as you're not like, I don't know, trying to do something for the public good and then, like pouring a bunch of oil into the lake and like getting paid for it. But yeah, I think the diversity of stuff really helps me. It keeps me, I like to have a lot of things going at the same time. It does drive me crazy. My younger son has ADHD, and as we've been going through this journey with him, sometimes I'm like, some of that looks like a little familiar to me. A little like I'm starting to see a few patterns here. Yeah, yeah, like just the brain, the thinking, the brain, and like just I identify with that a little bit. So yeah, but I like having like a mosaic of things to work on. It makes me feel
Now,
productive.
the way you even explain these things, when I'm listening to them, and I know this being your profession, this is what you've been doing 24 years, 25 years plus. What have you ever ran into writers? I don't even want to bring it up because it sounds like it doesn't work in your world, like where you blocked, or you may have insecurity about an article that you wrote, or something that you just feel like, I should edit. I'm sure you have things you look back on like, I wish I could change this and change that. But tell me about the professional side of that, like being blocked, or um if you have a deadline and feel like you need to edit more, and just getting it to the point where it needs to get to push it through.
Like
I don't know.
weirdly, it hasn't been that bad with my professional work. I think again because a good editor gives you directions, so you know what to do and the steps to take. I keep coming back to this, but my newsletter, it's very the newsletter world is it's like a community, and it is like storytelling again, where you hear back from your audience. That can be for better or for worse. And so sometimes you hear from people. I mean, this is such a silly example, but this really happened. I wrote a piece. I don't know if you've observed many little boys, especially it's mostly little boys, maybe it's some girls, who are not really good with using a knife and a fork. I have a lot of mom friends who are like, we kind of joke about it. We're also like sometimes worried, or like, is my son going to be a grown man out in the world, out on a date with a girl, and he like doesn't know how to like feed himself, And I was legitimately interested in this question. So I kind of dived into it, and I talked to some experts about like why this is a thing. And I sent out a newsletter about it that I hoped was kind of funny, but kind of, shed some light on it. And a woman wrote me back and said, this is very ableist. Like you are dumping on people who are, have neurological issues, which I tried to couch that and address that, be knowledgeable up top, but I don't know what I don't know. And I'm aware of that. But she was like, the way you treat your son is very ableist, and you should check yourself like as a mother. And yeah, that face. And I really try. Well, first of all, I don't like to clap back. It doesn't feel good. I try to learn my lessons and be like, I have my blind spots and I don't know what I don't know. Right. And so I was like, okay, thank you. Like, thank you for the feedback. Like, I'll try to do better, and she was like, no, I'm serious. You should really look into like how you treat your son. And so, so but, like
you did better than I would have done. You even took the high road and said, well, thank you. I'll look into that.
I happened to be with some friends, staying with friends out of town that weekend. So I like went downstairs and I had words for them. I was like, listen to this bitch. But they, but knowing knowing that you can get that kind of feedback, like before you even send something out, it can weigh on you, especially when it's like a heavy kind of piece. Like, I just did another piece about how to talk to someone. Asked me, how do you talk to your kids about when they see someone who is homeless or having like a mental health crisis or like a drug crisis in public? How do you explain that to them? That's a huge question, and there's no one answer, especially, kids of all ages. So that, okay, just starting with that, it's like having something very dark and sad like that, or this gun violence piece, like that, it can be hard to be like, let me find the answers and let me turn this into my voice. It's hard to, you're like, what do I have to contribute to that? And I finally put out this piece about talking to kids, and I got a lot of questions back, most of it positive, but then people were saying like, well, how do you talk to your kids who have autism about this? And I was like, I don't know. So sometimes like the pressure of like hearing back from people like that will block me up a little bit. And sometimes like, or again, I mean, you have a daughter who's 14, it's true. Like, that phrase, bigger kids, bigger problems. Like, I hate that phrase, but like, it is just true. And it like kind of, it gets more higher and higher stakes the older they get in the world,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Like, they're more independent. There are more ways for them to get in trouble, to get hurt, physically hurt, emotionally hurt. And sometimes I'm like, are we having fun? Are we having a good time here? Because sometimes I worry that it's getting kind of serious. So that is where like the block will come sometimes, when I'm like, okay, where do we get the fun back? How do I feel like I'm talking to people? How do I make sure I'm doing this kind of for me and for us, as opposed to sort of like just worrying about doing it right, So, and then even with my reading series, Funny Haha, it has been taken. I gave it, a friend of mine volunteered to take it over 2 years ago, and and it was a kind of a good breaking point because it was like post COVID. But I had realized that I was having a lot of anxiety before each show, just in terms of like getting a lineup together. Is the lineup going to be good? Will everyone show up on time? Do we sell enough tickets? Is the audience going to be funny? Are the readers going to have a good time? Is it going to snow? Like all these things that like are out of your hands. And that was kind of what made it a thrill. But like, it was like I wouldn't have fun really until it was all over, which is like a lot of work to put in for like a little bit of fun on the other end of it. And then I like to go home. I like to go to bed early, so I would do the show, say thanks, like talk to some people, get the money from the show, and then drive home to Evanston. And then finally being home post show was like kind of my favorite part of it, which is like that kind of made me take stock of like, maybe it's time to pass the torch. If I feel so much worry about it and anxiety about it, like give it to someone who might have a good time.
Yeah, but some of the projects that you work on, when you say you feel the block sometimes from knowing the future outcome or how people are going to receive whatever you're working on. And it's an anxiety. I know the anxiety feeling. And sometimes I think I must like this anxiety for some reason. It's something
Yeah.
I must enjoy, because I'm not an extrovert, right? So I'm more introverted. I like being at home writing, and then I have to go on stage and do something, or you have to write about gun violence, which is a touchy topic, or something about kids, in which somebody's going to send a little snarky remark and set you off. And then you have a live show, and I want to get into the live show right now too. But I think sometimes, I don't know. I think I enjoy the anxiety. I had to face that at some point. I'm like, you like this.
Yeah, I used to always compare it. There was a swimming pool we used to go to at Northwestern University, and they had a regular diving board, and then they had the high dive, and then they had the ultra high platform diving board for like doing all of the flips and trips and all that stuff. And I would make myself go to that top one and jump off, even though I did not enjoy it. I would make myself do it because it was there, and I would compare that feeling, same thing of like, I don't know, I got to do it. Like it's there, and I got to know I can do it. And yeah, and I think frankly, just like at a certain stage of my life, I was like, I think it's anxiety and not fun anxiety. So I'm sort of like I'm like, it may come back. I think I like, not to put too fine a point on it. I'm at a time in my life where it's like the anxiety and depression like need some like more fine tuning, a little more attention. So it's like, I don't know. I feel like it's okay to say break and like, or just send out do the newsletter at least, and like at least do this like smaller version of it where I send something out, and like this is so dumb and this is low stakes, but I was thinking about doing an April Fool's issue for my newsletter about mindful spanking, about how we're going to bring spanking back and we're just going to spank kids preemptively all the time, like morning spankings in the morning, spankings in the evening, spankings at supper time, and like and I'm like, I hope people will get that that's funny, because like there will probably be someone out there
It's
who's
gonna
like,
be somebody, some snarky person gonna
yeah,
come in and say,
child abuse is not funny, like we're not doing that, but I mean, that does make me want to do it more. Like I remember writing a piece once about how you should circumcise your kids because it's funny. Like, because I knew the discourse around circumcision was so extreme that I was
some
like,
people
what's the
don't
worst?
get nuance. They don't get
Or the opposite of
satire,
nuance,
anything. You'd be
just
like,
being
okay, they
dumb, just
don't
being
get it.
stupid. Yeah, but sometimes you're like, this is gonna be so dumb, I have to do it for sure.
Your show, Funny Haha, and you said like, is it going to be fun? Is it going to be funny? Every time I've done the show, and I've done it with a lot of people, different people, it's always been a great time, and I've always felt like the creatively, not so much challenge, but like I can be as creative as I want to with Funny Haha, and it's going to be appreciated in creativity. I think I told a story once at your show, uh dogging out storytelling, like shitting on storytelling, you know what I'm saying? And that was one of my favorite like performance times I've had. And shout out to the anomaly. It says much love from Chicago, and Mother Boomer, who's a TikTok storyteller, she says hello as well. But
Oh,
but your show, what why did you decide to do that? I mean, you were writing and all those things. So the stage, where did that come into play? And then tell a little bit more about the show.
yeah. So I started it in 2005 or so with my friend John Green.
Wow,
He's an author.
that long ago.
Yeah. He's an author. He lived in Chicago at the time. He's in Indiana now, but I had been to some readings. This is before kind of storytelling, like the moth, I'd say, had come on the scene. But I'd been to like literary readings, and I noticed two things. Like one, people would not put time caps on things. So you might hear some story that was 5 minutes long. You may hear someone talking for 26 minutes, and you're like, what? And I'd be angry. I'd be like, how dare this person think that we want to hear them talk for this long? How dare they think that their thing is so much more important than the other person? And then the other thing I noticed was like the funny pieces are the best pieces. Like they're the most fun to listen to. I mean, I appreciate a well told, sincere story, but like, let's face it, like you just want to hear a funny story. So we realized, because I had mentioned, like I said, like there was this online writing community on the web where like there's kind of this like humor writing place in the world that's not stand up, it's not improv. Like sometimes people wrote a funny piece and they want to read from a piece of paper, and like, so that's kind of where that came from, was like this kind of humor where you may not be, again, stand up has a very certain kind of tone and pattern and like walking around the stage with a microphone. And then improv is second city and it's very interactive. So we kind of came to Funny Haha with that. And of course, we do have storytellers sometimes, or, more traditional storytellers, or we have stand-ups every now and then. But that was kind of where that came from, was like this other brand of humor of people who may not typically be behind the mic. And we decided that not everyone would adhere to this, but we were like, you have a 10 to 15 minute max. I think we pulled it back to like 10 minutes, but because again, nothing can be funny for that long. It's just
10 minutes,
really
10 minutes is enough time. Yep. I
yeah, it's
agree.
more than enough time. And again, some people don't always pay attention to that, and it's like, it's the thing with the Hideout too. It's like, the Apollo, like they will get you off stage because they have another show to do. So like you have to be mindful of the clock. So that would be a stress, but also like a practical thing. And that was another aspect of the show, was that it would start at kind of an early time, like 6:30 or 7. But I would always say that's a show you can go out to dinner afterwards. Like you can go do something. Like, so it kind of lived in this place, because a lot of comedy shows don't start till 9 or 10 or something like that. So yeah. And so we would do about six readers. and we would often try to get a mix of kind of people who were more local, maybe not as well known. We used to try to have people who were kind of had a little bit of local cachet, local name, like Amy Dickinson from Ask Amy was someone, Julia
Yeah, I
Sweeney
like
from
her. Yeah.
yeah, from SNL was someone. And then I mean, I think as I got a little bit closer to the post COVID, I was like, you know what? I mean, even before COVID, I was like, I don't care about famous, like, because by that time, the Chicago storytelling scene had enough cachet where someone like Samantha Irby, you know, who went to high school with me, like, you're like, people come see these people tell stories. You don't have to be famous outside Chicago, you know, like people know you're going to be in for a good time. So at a certain point, I was like, let me just have people. I mean, that was another thing too, like, why you were great. A lot of it is like people who can show up and do the job. Another weird thing, I would not vet the pieces. Some shows I would want to see it ahead of time, and I think that was the anxiety of being like, I don't know what this person is going to do. And you know, a couple times I've seen someone take a big swing and it did not go over, you
Yeah,
know.
it happens. It happens. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and it's nerve-wracking. I feel bad for them. I feel bad for the audience, like, but, you know, but when you have someone like you, or I mean, there's a lot of, you know, there's like at least a dozen. I mean, I'm really lowballing it, but I just haven't been out that much. People who you know will come out, deliver, who know how to pace themselves, how to be funny, how to look at the audience, how to speak. You know, just do all the things. Like, just be a
Yeah, I'm
professional.
gonna tell you, like the people who watch it or people who might see this, funny, haha, if you see it and able to come, go to the show because every time I've gone, like you said, Sam Irby, Amy Dickinson, is it Dickinson? I believe
Dickinson. Mhm,
Dickinson,
mhm.
funny, hilarious, and every time I've gone, like I'm on stage with them, so I'm challenged in that sense. But then to do well, I'll be like, I remember once that I don't know who's the owner of the hideout or who manages it or whatever, and I was to the side, and he came up to me. He was like, I've seen a lot of stuff, you know. That was good, and I felt good because I know he's seen a lot of stuff, and
Yeah,
I was
yeah, he
like,
has.
I appreciate that, man. Thank
Yeah,
you.
yeah,
So it's
they've been
always a
really.
good show, though, is what I'm saying.
Thank
Yeah, yeah.
you. Yeah, no, it is a good show,
Is
and
it
I,
one
you know, I
coming
got.
up? Is anything coming up
Yes,
soon?
there's one on Friday, come a week, this upcoming Friday, the 22nd. I'm just gonna be there as a guest. My husband, their nepotism is real. I would have my husband be in the show a lot. Is nepotism if you're married to them? Maybe there's another word for it. But he does short film things, and I would have him at the end of the show because I mean, people always I would not have him if people didn't laugh. You know, will not. I've learned the hard way. I had one time someone on, like, as a favor that I didn't know that well, and they were like interested in it, and they were not that great. And I was like, you can't be a producer and like be everyone's friend. You have
Yeah,
to
yeah,
make some
yeah.
hard
You gotta be
decisions,
able
you
to
know,
say, this one isn't for you. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
go
You
do
do.
some other shows and come back, you know. But
Mhm.
I would have, because it was a good way to wrap up the show. It was like, you know, the live part is over, like we're gonna turn off the lights, watch 10 minutes of something funny, and then go have drinks, you know, and that's it. But yeah, so Jenin Bell Hoffman, she's the producer and the host now, and she would perform in the show a lot, and now she's taken it over. I've been talking to her, like we're friends, and I've been saying like, I don't know if I want to keep doing the show, and she very kindly offered to take it over. And I was like, you'll be great because I know you'll care about the same things I care about, which is like
Yeah,
all that stuff. And again, I mean, having also trying to have a diverse lineup of people and not just have like the same old people show up, you know, like, because that's really important. Like, if you want to have a diverse audience, you want to give people breaks, like learn about other readers. You can't just
yeah.
ask the same people all the time. And I knew she would care about that. And she has been doing a great job. So it's really
No,
nice to just
you
relax.
put research into that, into finding all the different speakers and different readers for the show. I've noticed that, and then certain shows do really well with that. I had Ada Chang on here last show, and I was looking at her lineup for her show, and I was like, I don't know any of these people, and I was like, that made me want to go even more. You know, I was
Yeah.
like, oh,
Oh my God.
I
Yeah.
want to see some new voices, some new readers, and Paper Machete. I always feel like his show, I see people who I haven't seen yet. I don't know these, but they're all
Yeah.
good.
I
Everybody's
would always
from
bring a
from all the
notebook.
way across the board: improv, literature, comedy, storytelling. All these
Yeah.
different things. And
Yeah.
I felt that with your show as well.
Oh, thanks. Yeah,
Yeah.
I would definitely go to other people's shows and bring a notebook along so I could write down like who I enjoyed so I could take them for the next show. And then talking to other producers, I'd be like, "Hey, do you know this guy? Is he good?" Or like, can you recommend anyone?" And so like that that has been a nice community in Chicago, and just being able to talk to other people who get your like some people don't like get that kind of anxiety, that creative anxiety. So they'd be like, "What's your problem? Why are you all tweaked out? Like this is not," and to have someone who like gets it, that you're like, "This is my baby, this is my party that I'm putting on, and I want everyone to have a good time, and I want the readers to feel appreciated, and I want the audience to have a good time." All of these things. So like other people could understand that it's really great to talk to other folks like that who
Yeah.
get that.
We can talk and talk and talk. I can see that. But see, that's what this is about. Because usually when I'm talking to other creatives, like I'm getting some gems that you're throwing out, but also at the same time, it's like I could keep on talking for about a couple hours on this one. But I want to get to some segments
Okay.
to give some good information out. Now, this is a segment I call read, listen, watch, binge. And your first thought on the question I'm gonna ask, and then the reason why, just a brief reason why. Um, what book would you recommend to everybody?
Okay, this is a big one that I've been working on. It's a big fat tome. You can see it here, but I've been reading King's biography by Jonathan Ive, who is a local author. And I started reading it in February. It's still taking me a long time to get through it. I personally had not read a biography of Martin Luther King, and so I am learning a lot about him. I'm learning a lot about civil rights. I'm learning a lot about how much history repeats itself, how many things awful things awful people say now that they were saying how many years ago now, 60 years ago. So it's not like a feel good book necessarily, but I'm really glad I'm reading it. And Jonathan is a local author as well, so I'm glad to support him. I gave it to my dad. My dad always like boomerangs books back to me, and he read it and he gave it back to me. And I was like, I better get into it. So it is really good. Like I said, it's not like a beach read per se, but if you are someone like me who does only kind of knows like that occasional Black History Month version of Martin Luther King Jr. and need to learn a lot more. Like I'm like I'm gonna see Rustin after this because I didn't know who Bayard Rustin was, and now I know. So anyway, so that's like a heavy read, but
No, but I
into
love books that, like a King book that goes like realistic, because a lot of times we get books about real famous, influential people, and they don't give you the nitty gritty on a lot of things, And the book that big, I would hope that he's touching on some of the real talks, and like even Martin Luther King Day when it passed, I was listening to more speeches beyond the, I Have a Dream. I was listening to some of his later speeches, and then those really in depth in the way the direction he was taking his movement in. But I checked that out. What about podcasts? I don't know if you listen to podcasts or not, but do you have any podcasts to suggest?
I do. There's one I love called Who question mark Weekly. And basically it's these two hosts. They're in New York. They're pop culture journalists, and they talk about kind of B level and lower celebrities, like your Real Housewives, like just celebrities that are not A-listers, and they just talk about what they get up to, and it's really funny. And I'm not someone who's well, let me not lie. I actually am way more plugged into pop culture than I should be if I could only put my time into other things. But like it keeps me up to date on things that I don't know about, like just shows that I don't watch, like and so it makes me laugh, it keeps me updated, and so I like that one a lot.
What's it called again?
It's called Who Weekly, but then there's a question mark after the word who, so it's Who Weekly.
Yeah, I'm gonna check that out because I love to get information from stuff that that be on the peripheral that I might not know about, but be pretty good. What about movie or documentary or both? What movie would you suggest to someone?
Well, you might get a kick out of this. I could not remember. I had to text my husband today. I was like, "What was the last movie that we watched?" And he said, "I thought it was Naiad." And I was like, "No, we watched something after that that we liked." And then we remembered it was the We Are the World documentary on Netflix. So it took us a while. That's marriage,
Yeah, I saw
and
that
that's
on there.
that's
Yeah,
kids. But yeah, the We Are the World one. It was interesting. It was just like imagining trying to get all of those people together in this year. I don't think that would happen, and also just like the fact that like Stevie Wonder, Ray Charles, Bob Dylan, like all of Billy Joel, Huey Lewis, like all these people were all in one room together, like kind of like a less Lionel Richie. It's a good Lionel Richie appreciation document too, but it's definitely like I mean, I don't also We Are the World to me is like very steeped in my childhood, like a moment of like my childhood. So it's kind of
yeah,
interesting to
yeah.
go back to that as like as an adult and see how that came to be. So that was fun. I like that one.
It was like the all-star. It was like icons, all it I remember
Yeah,
that moment growing up. We might be similar. I think I got you by a few, but we might be similar
we're both 28, right?
yeah, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. What about okay, everybody binges something on TV, even old or new. It could be new or old, but what you binge on TV, like, and that's always a great question because I hate to get in 4 episodes and be like, I just wasted 4 hours of
Never. Yeah, no,
of my
I hate
life.
when people are like that. I've been rewatching Succession lately. I watched the whole like HBO series. I watched it in real time, and then it ended last year. And then I was like, I want to watch it from the beginning. And it's been a really great rewatch because, like, if it's about this family, and it's about who's going to take over the family business from this, all these wealthy people when the father dies, and you never really know who you're supposed to be rooting for because they're all rich and they're all really flawed and they're all have these blind spots. And then to watch it from the beginning, knowing what you know at the end, is just really fascinating. Plus, there's so much money in it, and so like every episode takes there's like helicopters and private jets and like mountaintops and vineyards in Italy, and so that's like a treat for me, and I'll be like sad when I'm done with that project and have to find my new thing because I love falling asleep in front of TV. I know you're not supposed to do it, but it's just like it's just my favorite way to fall asleep. So I'll need something after that. But it's been a good rewatch.
No, no, and I love the detail that these writers come up with these shows and dropping Easter eggs that connect to the fifth season, and the fifth season connect to something that happened in the first season. So when you do rewatch, like other thing, you like, oh, they caught that. And then, are you one of those people who go back and watch the explained too, like a YouTube explained?
I will sometimes. You know what's my worst?
I
Well,
am.
my husband makes fun of me. I watch also a lot of RuPaul's Drag Race. That's also one of my favorite, like that I stick with. And there's like a series that's on YouTube where like another drag queen will have another drag queen on to watch the episode. So I'll watch an episode of RuPaul's Drag Race, and then the next day watch these two drag queens watching the episode and talking about it. And my
Watching it
husband,
together. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah, my husband is like, "What is wrong with you?" But he also talked about. He's like, "There's a little smile on your face that like I see when you watch that show." So, what have you been binging, Shannon?
What have I been? I binged this one TV show called The Family Business. And it
Hmm.
was it was it's like a BET show about this family who has like they're a prominent family, but they run drugs too, and they New York is based in New York, and it's the most beautiful people in it, and everything. And I watch it. It's not the best written show, but I like it for that reason because I can just play it, and if I miss an episode here or there, I don't feel bad. I feel like I can catch up. I can
Yeah.
catch up with everything on the episode. So I have binged that one, and I'm looking forward to another season. Hope they on YouTube on Instagram. They talk about a new season coming, so I want to watch the new season if it comes up.
You're making me realize that I do secretly binge Love Is Blind, but I don't watch. I pretend like I don't because I'm always doing something in front of it because it's so dumb that I can't just actually watch it. It's like
Yeah,
my
yeah, yeah.
background show,
You gotta have
but
those shows that you can
with like one eye.
watch over here.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, yeah. I got okay, so because we've been talking, but I want to do this segment too. Okay, I'm throwing this one out to you. This is called Be Brutally Honest, and this is a story. Now we can walk out this story together. We can talk it out together. So it's not anything that's hard or anything like that. But I'm gonna give you some categories. So choose the category, and then I'm gonna give you a prompt. And if a story comes to mind from the prompt, and we can talk it out. This is a little short, little brief, little story. But your categories are early spring, March Madness, and Women's History Month.
Let's do March Madness.
March Madness. A story about starting a new process and things not going perfectly, but you're dedicated and you keep going. Story about a new process. Things didn't go perfectly, but you're dedicated. You go see it through. That bring anything to mind?
And this is like a real situation.
A real situation. If you say pass, I got another prompt.
Let's do pass. Let me do Women's History Month.
No. Wait. I got another.
Oh, sorry.
I got another
okay. All right, go for it. Sorry.
In that category.
Okay, I'm ready.
A crazy St. Patty's Day story.
Oh God. It's not crazy for me, but I will say when I went to Georgetown in school, I lived with a roommate who her name was Liz McCardle, super Irish.
Call her out. Look at that.
I know. Well, she knows I'm. She's probably not watching just because she doesn't know we're doing this, but we're still friends. But I teased her about this. She got up at 8 a.m. and she got an espresso drink to like caffeinate so that she could get her day started drinking. And that's not even like a good story. That's just like a thing that happened. But I had never seen someone be like, it'd be like you were prepping for the SATs or you had a job interview and like, let me have my breakfast, let me drink my coffee. But no, she was getting ready to go to drink for the whole day. And she did. And you know what, at the time I was like, what a monster, what a party monster. Like, I don't do St. Patrick's Day, but now I'm like, you know what? She had a plan and she should stick with it. But
did you hang with her throughout that day?
I did not, because I was like a hater and I'm not Irish. I was not a big drinker. I'm like an anti kind of St. Patrick's Day person, to be honest. Like my husband used to make me go to St. Patrick's Day parades with him. He still jokes about taking me down there, but I'm like, I joke that I'm like, that's like, well, it's not my thing. And yeah, going to those parades, you're like, who are all these young people? Where did they come from? Like they came in from out of nowhere and they were wasted. And yeah. And so I'm just kind of judgy about it, but like Liz, she's out there. She has a really important job these days and she has a family and her daughter's name is Claire. So I'm not dumping on her and she's a responsible person to this day. But that was like one dedicated drunk Irish girl that I am proud to know to this day. But yeah, I have some embarrassing partying stories, but none happened on St. Patrick's Day. So I'm almost like out of spite.
That's what's up. I love that. I like the preparation because I can relate to that. You want to prepare for certain days that I know I'm gonna
certain
drink.
Days. Yeah.
I'm about to eat some pizza ahead of time to soak up all the eat some bread, get my caffeine.
I feel like that wasn't a good story. Do you want me to give you another one or is that one good enough?
No, that's good enough.
Okay.
That's good enough. Right. We just kind of talking through some things and having some fun here. I appreciate you even being here with me, Claire. I really do. I appreciate the conversation.
Kind of embarrassed. Like I'm not embarrassed. I was kind of worried that I would bring any of the goods or flop or anything like that. And well, it's like a Zoom. Sometimes a Zoom is like a job interview. Sometimes it's a conversation. Like you never know. You're like, am I going to be funny? Bring it. Like
but
again,
I'm going to be things where I know so many different creative people from all walks. And yourself. I think of you in print a lot, but I know. The show Funny Ha Ha, always had a great time there, and I thought you were a great curator of that show. So I was like, I do want to talk to you more. And I don't think we ever had like full-on conversation. We just more so talking.
No, I'd be like, thank you.
Emails are coming on the emails from being a part of the show or just in passing. So it's good to kind of like just to shoot the shit with you a little bit.
Shout out. It's called funnyhahachicago.com is the website for the show. So if you guys anyone watching wants to come to the next show at the Hideout on Friday, that'll give you all the details. But and then my Substack is Evil Witches on Substack. Just look it up. It's for people who happen to be mothers If you don't want to joke about parenthood, if you are a man who doesn't like to hear sometimes like a couple jokes about husbands who, are like not super, stepping up, then don't sign up. But if you think you might get a kick out of, if you think anything I've said is fun or interesting, then you might enjoy it. So yeah, but Shannon, it's been great to talk to you, and I'm glad to like be in touch with you, and hope to see you on stage sometime soon. I'm glad we're back in Chicago again.
Most definitely, most definitely. I was about to say the same thing. Tell us where I see that's their professionalism. But funny haha, and check out the Substack as well. Great talking to you too. Thank you so much. I'm gonna say a few words and then stay on the line for a second. I'm gonna talk to you. Yep,
All right.
yep.
Thanks, Shan.
Thank you. And thank you. That's Storyteller the Storyteller. Make sure you like and subscribe. Talking creative conversations with me. It's on most Sundays. Some Sundays I miss, but most Sundays we'll be here. Next week, I'm talking to Gaster Alamante, who's a comedian in New York. Funny dude. Straight New Yorker. Great New Yorker. It's going to be a great conversation because me and him, anytime we together, it's really cool time. So join us next Sunday, and thank you so much. Make sure you like and subscribe. You're going to be getting many more of these. So thank you so much. And they always wait to the last second.
Now that's homemade.